Hey, good afternoon. This is Tuesday afternoon, the day of the Trump trial, and a day and a half after the Super Bowl. So those are the big news items, but I'm not going to talk about either of them. So my powers of self-restraint are on full display. But I do want to talk about stories, the stories we tell about ourselves, and the ones we live out, as well as the ones we could be telling and living out. So everyone knows that Superman and Clark Kent are the same, and that one is the alter ego of the other. But most people, get it backwards. That they think Superman is Clark Kent's alter ego, but no, Superman is the real person, and Clark, the mild-mannered Clark Kent, he's the alter ego who's useful for doing like simple social and domestic things. And I think I want to say that basically the same is true for you and me and us. There's a part of us that is capable of and can lead a heroic life, a life of being our absolute best and having the courage and the desire to do that. And that is the real us. And these other smaller roles we play, they may be necessary at time or they may protect us from certain things, but they're not the real us. The heroic part of us is the one that's real. And it's interesting. I've read and heard that from scientific experiments that there's actually a toolkit for helping to activate the that heroic self. Recently, I heard a podcast on about experiments with kids, and they would divide kids up into certain groups and give them difficult to solve problems. And one group of kids would get be told to impersonate Batman or some other heroic figure. And sometimes they'd even dress up in capes, and then that group of kids would have to deal with this problem or try and solve it. And then the other kids would just be themselves. And the kids who were impersonating Batman vastly outperformed those who were, quote, being themselves. Um, and there's a book I read several years ago by Ellen Langer called Counterclockwise, and she does all these mindset experiments. One in which, just in terms of people's vision and eyesight, where she had people actually dress up in pilots' outfits. So, and they were put in a flight simulator. And so they were, and then in the flight simulator, they were told to look to the side and read the numbers on an airplane that the simulator had flying close to them. And they read it, but it was just a standard eye chart. And those who were in the mindset of being an Air Force pilot vastly outperformed what they could do when they were just doing a regular eye chart. So, it's kind of this as if effect. You can, in some sense, totally improve your performance and your sense of well being by acting as if you're not afraid, acting as if you're a hero. And, so there's this tremendous power of identity in the way that we see ourselves. So, so to just focus, like people often do in therapy, to just focus on our bad feelings, just keeps our attention wrapped up in that, and it makes us weaker and powerless. So, in the studies of motivation, you know, motivation and emotion have the same root, movere, which means to move. So to move is to act. So it's acting, not sitting and kind of exploring our feelings, that actually gets us to change our lives. So, Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. He didn't say, go to a therapist and sit there and analyze your bliss. And definitely don't sit there and analyze your problems or your hard childhood. Even if those were true, even if those childhood painful memories were true, and they were certainly true for me, then the question is, What are you going to do about it? Given all that happened and given you have this inner life, what are you going to do? How are you going to act to change that? Not, you have such hard feelings, your life is so hard. Okay, so all motivation starts with having some strong desire. You have to really want something. And that really wanting something is what gives you motivation to go for it, to act. You know, um, in AA, they often talk about hitting bottom. And sometimes people really have to hit bottom before there's no alternative. I have to change. And when they finally make that decision, they do. So as as Joseph Campbell also said, the promised land is not a piece of real estate. The place we need to go is not some nirvana over there, and it's not a red Ferrari. The promised land is a place in ourselves where we're fulfilled and happy and living our best. You know, there's this guy Martin Seligman who's written a lot of books. He's considered the father of positive psychology, and he studied over 100 different cultures and like 150,000 people. To see how people who were facing adversity and life challenges dealt with it. And he found just across every culture, the people who identified their core values and focused on activating them were far more resilient and fulfilled than those who focused on the problems and how maybe unjust they were or how bad they were. So, and he found in his in actually he's written many books. One was on the authentic happiness theory about flourishing. That when your highest strengths are deployed, that leads to more positive emotions, more meaning, more accomplishment, and better relationships with people around you and in your life. And so, knowing and finding our signature strengths and values, and then putting them in service to something greater than ourselves or in service of our most deeply held passions and goals, that what makes for a good life. Now, at the end of life, at the end of our lives, what do you think we'll remember? We won't remember all the thoughts we had or all the feelings we had. We'll remember the actions we took, how we showed up, what we did for ourselves and others. The Super Bowls we've won. Oops, sorry. But anyway, we'll remember whether we gave it our all. And because if we do that, we'll have lived a full life. Okay. So I just want to finish this, say that many or most of us are telling ourselves a lethal story that we believe is gospel. We believe we're damaged, we believe we're victims, we believe that life is against us and that no matter what we do, the deck is stacked, stacked so we won't win. That's a lethal story. There's something in you that's great, it's magnificent, and you're better and bigger than all that. So, ladies and gentlemen, uh, yeah, let's go for that. And oh, I haven't showed my T-shirt. Check it out. You know what, Clark Kent?